My name is Joyce and I'm here with another video to inspire you, to encourage you, and to motivate you to live your best life. It's very sunny today, so excuse me if the sun keeps interrupting us, but what a great day and a great way to start another video. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about toxic people and really why and how to get rid of them. I think it's really important to make sure that your surrounding is a really safe place to be, just for your growth. But also, if you are a toxic person, sometimes you don't always know that you are, and particularly if you've been brought up in an environment where there's a lot of toxicity, you don't know any better. But the whole purpose of my channel is to really help people learn and grow, because I think part of the reason that we're here is so that we can influence and change other people. But change always starts with ourselves. So I think it's really important to kind of redefine what toxicity is. And this is like a textbook definition that I'm going to read you. And it says, a toxic person is a person whose behavior adds negativity and chaos and upset in your life. So usually it also says that toxic people are dealing with their own stresses and their own trauma. So I think part of the reason we find it really difficult to walk away from particularly intimate relationships is that we understand and we've seen parts and glimpses of the person that we're with that are really good, and we hold on to that because it doesn't mean that they're horrible people. It just means that they've grown up in an environment where they don't get it, and they don't understand how their behavior is impacting other people. So but I think for yourself, how do you get rid of that? How do you walk away from toxicity? Because I think ultimately you have a right to walk away from people and things that don't serve you. And I don't mean that in a way that, okay, that person's toxic, I'm going to walk away from it. It's really about how it makes you feel. Because, people don't always have the worst intentions. But you have to, and the people will not protect you. You have to protect yourself. And I think sometimes the idea of being alone is worse than being with a toxic person, right? But I think you need to be, and this is always has been my message, people have to start getting comfortable of being on their own, because it doesn't mean that you're lonely necessarily, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that there's an opportunity for you to really look at yourself and look at how your life is, and then make a difference as to whether this is helping you or not. Because in order for us to learn and grow, often we need to take time out by ourselves, away from people that don't serve us, sometimes closer to people that can serve us. So being in an environment where you're saturated with really positive, or well, not necessarily positive, of course, but I think in terms of growth, for us to understand growth, it's got to be positive, because otherwise if it's negative, we don't usually get it. So you need to be in an environment where you're learning and growing and merging yourself and submerging yourself in an atmosphere that's really good for your own growth. So anyway, one of the reasons why, or one of the things that we can identify, or rather one of the things we can identify as toxic, is that you always end up feeling really horrible when you hang out with that person. You can't put your finger on it, and I think that's, for me, that's how I started to really notice and want to get rid of things. It just, being around them just made me feel bad. I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't say this is exactly what they said and that's why I felt like this, but it could be because I wasn't at that time emotionally intelligent enough to get it. Although I do think that term is a little bit overused, because I mean, what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent? But I just think it meant that I wasn't in tune with myself, or I didn't understand psychology enough to really get where the person was coming from. And so if you're always feeling really negative or bad about yourself, or feeling, like you need to have a shower, or you just need to not see that person again for a while, that could be a sign that that person is toxic. Another thing would be like this, they're just negative all the time. They don't have anything good to say about the world. They don't have anything good to say about people around them. They don't have anything good to say about their job. I mean, like their whole life and their whole environment is just a fest, right? And that's kind of how you know, because everything they say is just cold, it's cruel, and sometimes downright evil. And sometimes you kind of give them a pass because you think, well, maybe they've had a tough time growing up, or their parents were really to them, and so you kind of just put it aside. But I think you've got to be on high alert on such behaviors, because what you end up doing, if you're in it for so long, you end up picking up those habits and seeing the world in such a negative way that you then start attracting what you're really not wanting, to be honest, and not understanding why. Because you at the core of you feel like you're a really good person, but just seems to happen to you all the time. Think about your environment, think about people around you. The other thing is that they can be very, very judgmental. They have something to say about everybody. That person is not tall enough, not skinny enough, not polite enough. They always have to have a judgment against everything. They can't just be watching and observing things and taking notes. It always has to be a negative reason as to why that person is the way they are. Another thing is that they don't have compassion. They just lack empathy. If something evil's happened to somebody else, well, not evil, horrible has happened to somebody else, usually for the masses, or for most people, it's always like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. How did that happen? How can I help you? How can we move forward? But for that person, it's always like, oh, I saw it coming. They should have known that. I don't feel sorry for them. There's always a reason as to why they lack the compassion that they need to as a human being. But I think part of it is because they're just not capable of it. They're not in tune with themselves enough, and they've not had compassion in their own lives, so they don't know what that looks like. And that's exactly the reason to walk away from them, because you're not there to educate them. Some people will never get it. And despite how many years you spend with them, despite how much you want to help them, despite putting them in a space where they can learn and grow, they just will never get it. And you have to cut your losses and just walk away from it, because it does not serve you to spend your time trying to change other people. And here's the secret: you can never change other people. There's a saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that has been very true in my coaching practice. People, unless they're ready, they will never change. And there's nothing you can do in this world to make them change, or be ready for change, or be willing to see things differently, unless they are ready to. So you have to be willing to walk away from those environments and those people. And I think that whether that's family or not, even though you can't always, or some people can, cut themselves away from family, and I'm talking about like your immediate family. Sometimes it's just cutting the time that you spend with them very short and keeping it very sweet and cute, because they will never, ever, ever change. But you have to, for whatever reason, be able to coexist. And, so you've got to protect yourself. So if you need to see them, whether that's your parent or your sibling or your baby mama, or whatever, keep it really short. You don't have to engage for long, and you don't have to give them what they need. So the other thing, I think the final thing, which is not always evident, is that they're always dishonest. They're always lying about something, whether it's what they've seen, who they are, where they work, what they do. Lying for them is not something they think about. It's something that comes really naturally. They tend to. It's a tendency. It's about, but I think it's more about like a coping mechanism, because they don't have the capacity to think that you may have the best interest, because they don't. And so in order to camouflage that, they're always lying, they're always saying, and when somebody lies, you can never have an honest relationship with them, because you eventually find out. Liars always, liars and lies always pop off in the end, because eventually, if they lie long enough, they'll forget their lies, and that always catches them out. And so if they can lie to you, given their relationship with you, because there's some people that lie and you just think, what the hell was that for? Why did you need to lie to me? Because it doesn't impact our relationship. But when they're close to you, when you are intimate with them and they're lying to you, it does really hurt. And I think the question to ask yourself is, do you want to keep putting yourself in a space and in an environment where you cannot trust that person you're with? It's not worth it. It's definitely not worth it. And that might mean for you cutting yourself away from that relationship. It could just mean for some time, as you learn and adjust and, think about how to reapproach it. But it could also be time to cut off that relationship, particularly it's friendship and you think it's not worth. There's no point. There's no exchange, because the exchange for you is constantly feeling bad about yourself, constantly being lied to, constantly being rude, being the person being rude to you, constantly being deceived, constantly being dishonest. Is it worth it? I don't think so, because any relationship, I think for it to work, it's got to be an exchange where you both feel that you're gaining something, whether that's feeling good about yourself for service, or that you have a relationship or somebody that you can trust and be open to. And if that's not working, why are you still in that toxic relationship? Now, I know that's not exhaustive. There's obviously lots of books that you can read about it and videos that you can watch. But I think if any of these are kind of there in your life, it's a red alert. And you don't need to be hanging out with people that are toxic. And if you are toxic yourself, seek help, because anybody can change, but you've got to be ready to change, because life is too short to be toxic. Having said that, have an amazing day. I'll speak to you. It's Friday today, so I'll speak to you again next Monday. God bless.